Part 75. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 741. In the spiritual world, gray mist spreads everywhere, and in the cold sky, little bits of light from spiritual bodies flickered like lonely stars. One after another, the hideous and ugly nightmare insects were entangled in groups, swimming in the gray mist and sky. There were too many of them, and they were everywhere. At first glance, it felt like they were in the nest of the nightmare insects. And in the lair of those nightmare insects, a blood-colored palace was floating in the gray mist. There were not nightmare insects flying around the palace. On the high throne in the palace, there is a huge diamond-shaped mirror. The mirror is like an upright eye. In the mirror, a dream demon wearing a black robe is sitting high in the mirror, looking coldly at the man crawling on the steps. Luo Zhenxiao underneath. The dream demon back then had one of his arms cut off by Xiaopingan in the spirit world, and had become disabled. But now the dream demon in the mirror, the incomplete arm had grown back. Not only that, the aura of the dream demon in the mirror was also more solid and powerful, with a flash of divine light in his sinister eyes, as if he was a different person. The dream demon looked down at Luo Zhenxiao, who was lying on the ground with his head on the ground and his butt raised high, with aloof and indifferent eyes. His voice was cold, just like a master looking down at a slave. It's a pity that your planet is very poor, like a barbaric wilderness. The only cultivation resource, world beads, comes from the space invasion that you resist. Without space invasion, there would not even be summoners on your planet. In fact, that is not an invasion, but the ultimate process of the unified evolution of the universe. The entire universe, the starry sky, and all realms will eventually surrender to the glory of the dominant demon god and complete the highest evolution. All life will eventually become immortal. This is the final destination of all life. The great master, the master of the spiritual world, there are too many stupid and ignorant people. They don't know the truth of the universe. Their resistance and closure are resisting the immortal and supreme process. Luo Zhenxiao's humble voice echoed in the hall, with a hint of inexplicable greed and hope, as well as a hint of fear. I am willing to give everything I have to the master and the master demon, so that the earth can return to the master in the great order of the devil. However, my body has aged, my divine power is drying up day by day, and the secret mandala I have condensed is becoming overwhelmed like a weathered rock. The life extraction spell given to me by the previous master, it has gradually become ineffective. Every time, I ask the master to give me a higher level life extraction spell, so that I can continue to contribute my humble strength to the great cause of dominating the devil on earth and to the final process of the universe. Do you still want to get the next level of life extraction spell from me? The dream demon looked at Luo Zhenxiao, who was lying on the ground, with a smile on his lips, as if he was watching a drug addict who took the bait and rummaged through his pockets. The last copper plate said, "So, what can you bring to me? What can you bring to the great cause of dominating the demon god? You know my rules, such a secret method can only be exchanged for contribution. As long as you give me a little more time, I can control the entire Great Yan Kingdom and make the master of the billions of people in the Great Yan Kingdom. As one of the strongest countries on earth, once I control the Great Yan Kingdom, and Europe, if we are connected as one and dominate the devil's cause on earth, we will have a huge breakthrough. In the end, we will be able to unify the entire world and find ways to open the space channel again. Now is the most critical time. The stubborn forces in Dian are very powerful. Although our cause has made great progress in recent years, it has not yet achieved a decisive victory. Only by maintaining my peak condition can I complete the tasks assigned to me by my master. Also, the relatives around Xiaopingan, people are already watching him. As long as Xiaopingan can come back, he will definitely fall into the master's control. What you said makes sense. The dream demon remained aloof and mysterious, seeming to be thinking. And at this moment, inside and outside the blood-colored palace, Xiaoping's figure walked out of the surging grey mist without any warning. With just one step, he appeared in the palace and stood beside Luo Zhenxiao, who was crawling on the ground. Next to him, with a mocking smile on his face, he looked at the Dream Demon's figure in the mirror. "Dream Demon, long time no see. Haha, your broken arm has grown quite quickly. It seems that you have made great progress in the past few years." Xiaoping's voice echoed in the bloody palace, and he looked around with a leisurely expression. Luo Zhenxiao, who was lying on the ground, was extremely shocked. He raised his head, turned his face, looked at Xiaoping's face, and exclaimed, "Xiaoping." The Dream Demon in the mirror was also shocked, with a hint of panic in his eyes. His figure that was sitting upright trembled and almost fell off the high seat. Why are you here?" At this moment, the spirit body of Xiaoping appeared in the spirit world. The spirit body had Xiaoping's true face, so it was immediately recognized by Luo Zhenxiao. With Luo Zhenxiao's exclamation, Xiaoping also confirmed one thing. He had never met Luo Zhenxiao before, but Luo Zhenxiao could recognize him at a glance. This only meant one thing. Luo Zhenxiao already knew about the Tianmending plan and betrayed himself to the garbage Dream Demon without any reservation. Luo Zhenxiao lay on the ground and looked at Xiaoping standing in front of him. In comparison, he found that he was a bit ugly. He seemed to want to stand up and regain his majesty in front of Xiaoping. But Xiaoping's eyes turned cold, he raised his foot, stepped out, and stepped directly on Luo Zhenxiao's head. Just like crushing a banana, a maggot, and a rotten tomato, Luo Zhenxiao's spirit body was directly crushed by Xiaoping. Ping stepped on it and it exploded. It was torn into pieces and no dregs were left. In the spirit world, the strength gap between Luo Zhenxiao and Xiaoping is 100 times greater than their strength in the summoner field. In front of Xiaoping, Luo Zhenxiao is not even an ant. Not only did Xiaoping's foot trample Luo Zhenxiao to death, but that foot hit the ground with a loud bang. The entire Dream Demon's bloody palace trembled, as if it had encountered a terrifying earthquake. A huge crack opened from Xiaoping and his feet extended out, and with a loud crackling sound, he passed through most of the palace, splitting the steps of the palace into two, shattering several pillars in the palace, and the cracks extended to the front of the mirror. Amidst the crisp explosion, countless cracks suddenly appeared in the mirror. The Dream Demon in the mirror didn't care about Luo Zhenxiao's life or death at all. The Dream Demon sneered, slowly retreated from the throne, and laughed wildly, staring at Xiaoping fiercely. "Ha ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to really come back, you can't catch me, this world is very interesting, let's play slowly." Looking at the Dream Demon gradually receding from the mirror, Xiaoping also smiled, "You should have mastered an entrance to the spiritual world into this world. As long as I seal the entrance to the spiritual world, you will not be able to go back. You are not my opponent." "You are right. We can play slowly. This time, I will not let you run away again. The earth is your last grave. This time, you have thrown yourself into the trap. You wait, I can find you. By the way, thank you for letting me find the nest of this nightmare insect. This is also a generous gift. After destroying the nightmare insect in this nest, my strength will be even stronger." The Dream Demon's laughing face suddenly froze. He waved his sleeves, and the mirror suddenly fell into pieces and turned into powder. The entire palace began to collapse, and countless grey mist poured in. The countless people who had been entrenched around the palace before the nightmare insects were densely packed and rushed towards Xiaoping with ferocious faces. The Dream Demon was too polite and sent him supplements again. Xiaoping smiled slightly and pressed his chest. The giant-like Flame King Kong appeared. The Flame King roared angrily, and the flames burning on his body swept across the sky of the spiritual world. Suddenly, thousands of incoming nightmare insects were turned into powder in the flames. A flaming whip appeared in the hand of the Flame King. With a wave of the whip, the spiritual sky within 10,000 meters was split into two by the flames. The nightmare insects were frightened and began to flee, only to find that they were enveloped by a huge barrier. Just over 10 seconds later, the entire nest of the nightmare insect exploded and turned into powder. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 742. Xiaopingan opened his eyes. Everything in the secret room was as before. From the time Xiaopingan came here and entered the spirit world to the time he came out of the spirit world, just over 3 minutes had passed. The nests of nightmare insects and the palace of dream demons in the spiritual world have been destroyed. After Xiaopingan's soul power absorbed the soul power of countless nightmare insects, it increased sharply again, which was an unexpected and huge gain. It's just that the dream demon is too cunning and cautious. In the palace of the spirit world just now, even when facing Luo Zhenxiao who prayed to him to enter the spirit world, the dream demon's body did not appear in the palace, but used the spirit world to his secret technique created a mirror image in the palace, so even if Xiaopingan destroyed the palace, the dream demon still escaped and could not hurt the dream demon at all. Judging from the strength of the dream demon, after going to the capital to say goodbye, the dream demon also has its own opportunities. The dream demon's strength is much stronger than before, and he has mastered some of the spells of high-level shepherds. I just don't know how high the dream demon is now. Has he mastered the art of substitutes? In this battle with the dream demon, Xiaopingan also confirmed one thing. The dream demon is the mastermind behind the current chaotic situation on Earth. Luo Zhenxiao was still kneeling on the ground, with black blood oozing from all his orifices. He could not die anymore, like a piece of blackened stinky meat. There were dense blood-red spots everywhere on his skin, face, hands, and stomach. The pattern of the devil's eye. Because Luo Zhenxiao entered the spiritual world while making sacrifices to the dream demon and was trampled to death by Xiaopingan, so his current appearance is particularly ugly, with the blood-red devil's eye marks on his body. Every mark represents an innocent child that he once tortured with the life extraction technique. Such marks are all over his body. This beast is taking advantage of you. Xiaopingan glanced at Luo Zhenxiao with disgust. Before, Xiaopingan was thinking about how to disguise and arrange the scene, arranging Luo Zhenxiao's death on the head of the devil's eye, so that the next operation could proceed smoothly. Now it seems that there is no need for him to do anything anymore. This evil person here, the altar, the appearance of Luo Zhenxiao's death, and the crocodiles in the deep pool next to it devoured the remains of the children. Even a blind person would know that Luo Zhenxiao's death was definitely related to the eyes of the devil. Relationship. With Luo Zhenxiao's death, all the items in Luo Zhenxiao's space equipment were exploded and piled up in the room, occupying half of the room. The things that exploded from Luo Zhenxiao's body were all packed in sandalwood boxes or metal boxes or other containers. Xiaopingan opened the two sandalwood boxes and took a look. There were bottles of pills inside, and the metal boxes were full of various colorful world beads, including some water and food, are essential things for summoners to use when running away or under special circumstances. Xiaopingan did not carefully check the contents of those boxes. After he glanced at the boxes, he saw a palm-sized box that was a bit special. He opened the box and saw a golden key in the box. The key, there is also a special logo of the Order Committee on it. This is the key to the secret treasury of the Order Committee's world bead, and it has finally been found. Xiaopingan took a long breath, waved his hand, and collected everything into his spatial warehouse. Then he put away the array disk that enveloped the room, and disappeared from the room with just a flash of his body. The Luo family's garbage has not been wiped out yet. There is another garbage. The one who entered the house just now, Luo Zhenxiao's son, cannot be let go tonight. The duty of eradicating evil has been completed. Since we have taken action, we must completely uproot the Luo family tonight. When Luo Ting came in just now, He had already been hit by Xiaoping's yes man. Now, at the cocktail party above, it's time to get excited and the best part is about to begin. The melodious music echoed in the hall. On this occasion tonight, even the musicians of the band playing the music felt proud. They were all wearing white dresses, carefully dressed, and working hard. Playing music adds luster to the reception. The messengers were carrying wine glasses and kept shuttling among the crowd. The gentlemen, celebrities, and ladies in the hall, anyone who walks out, in the capital area, are all celebrities, parliamentarians, senior officials, generals, bankers, industrial tycoons, media giants, famous summoners, famous actors, famous writers, etc. Waiting, there are still a group of rich ladies and courtesans gathered together in twos and threes, talking in low voices about various topics, the situation in Europe, the turmoil in France, the summer offensive of the Chinese military, and the great Yan Kingdom topics such as the fallen provinces and cities in the south, the current industrial production of Dian Kingdom, the defense and financial order of the capital area. All the sufferings in the world seem to have nothing to do with the people here, but are just something for the people gathered here to talk about with champagne or red wine in their hands. Du Bin, whom Xiaoping had met during the day, was also at the reception. He had a shiny slicked back hair and a white black collared dress. He held a red wine glass in one hand and clasped the other behind his back, with a smile on his face. With a warm smile, he shuttled among the crowd at the reception like an elegant gentleman, his eyes flashing like a wolf, looking for prey. Du Bin knew that he was not qualified for the role of a small director here. He could not squeeze into many circles of big shots, and others might not take him seriously. Therefore, his goal was to appear here. The rich ladies and family members of the important people in the occasion. A reliable father-in-law with wide connections in the capital area can save him 20 years of struggling in the order committee. Even for a person like him, marriage is an indispensable help to achieve a leap in life and career. Of course, Du Bin didn't come here solely for marriage. The women here were of the highest quality in the capital area, which would arouse his desire to conquer. It would also be interesting to hook up with one or two. Suddenly, Du Bin's eyes lit up. Not far away, a beautiful figure in a black evening dress came into his eyes next to the fountain in the hall. She was a beautiful woman of 18 or 19 years old, wearing a shining diamond around her neck. The necklace showed her net worth. Next to the woman, the wife of the president of the Imperial Development Bank was holding her hand and introducing the woman to the ladies next to her. The woman kept a polite smile on her face, but she is also a bit shy, and she doesn't seem to like such occasions. She may have been forced to come here by her family members. Judging from her appearance, that woman should be the daughter of the president of the Imperial Development Bank. Judging from her demeanor, the woman's eyes were bright and simple. Her eyes were not scanning the crowd at the reception. She looked a little lonely, but also had some expectations. A woman of this age came from a superior family, was simple, loved to dream most, and fantasized about romantic love. He meets someone by chance, but is new to the world, full of curiosity about everything, and has a bit of a heroic plot of Prince Charming. This is the most ideal goal at the reception. In Du Bin's eyes, this woman was like a pure lamb placed in front of him, waiting for his blessing. If he wanted to take action, he would definitely catch her. Seeing the woman making excuses to walk away from the fountain and walking to the balcony alone, Du Bin's lips revealed a wicked smile that was determined to win. When the opportunity came, he drank the wine in his hand in one gulp and put the glass to a waiter. On the tray, then with a charming smile on his face, he strode through the crowd next to him like a hunting wolf, approaching the woman, just like a hunting wolf approaching its prey. Just when Du Bin was less than 10 meters away from the woman, the Secret Service watch on Du Bin's wrist vibrated slightly silently. Du Bin glanced at his watch impatiently. A message code came from the watch. When Du Bin saw the message code, his expression suddenly changed. That code was sent by someone under his command, which meant that something unexpected had happened to the case of Mo Yanshao that he was looking at, and the worst case scenario had occurred, requiring him to contact the Internal Affairs Supervision Department immediately. Thinking that just now in the small garden, she was patting her chest and promising to a certain big shot that she would pry open Xiao Moyan's mouth and get things done, so that the big shot would be very satisfied. Unexpectedly, the matter in hand would suddenly change. If an accident occurs, isn't this a slap in the face? Du Bin stared at the woman not far away. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, he immediately turned around and walked out of the hall quickly. He came to a secluded corner of the garden outside the hall. Then he quickly took out his mobile phone and turned it on. He called his subordinate's phone number. "What's wrong with Mo Yan? Didn't I say that I have something important tonight? Do you have to contact me at this time?" As soon as he spoke, Du Bin's voice was full of displeasure, with a hint of anger. But after a moment, Du Bin's voice and face suddenly changed. "What? Young Master Mo Yan has been appointed by the Military Control Commission as the Deputy Director of the First Bureau of the Ministry of Political Security. People from the Ministry of Political Security came with a transfer order to take young Master Mo Yan away." Du Bin's voice was full of panic, almost screamed. The phone was quiet for a few seconds, and then, Mo Yanshao's voice suddenly appeared. The voice was particularly cold and had a strong sense of oppression. "Director Du Bin, I asked them to contact you. Now in your office of the Ministry of Internal Affairs Supervision, your office has been sealed by us, and your subordinates are now cooperating with our investigation. I am now officially informing you in the name of the Political and Security Department of the Military Control Commission that in view of your many of the practices in the position of director have seriously violated the internal disciplines and job self-discipline requirements of the Military Control Commission and the Order Committee. The Ministry of Political Security has now officially initiated a political security review of you. Please contact me within 2 hours of receiving my call. Come back to accept the political security review. The security review process has now begun. We have mastered your location. You are now at Xuanhuan Mountain in the capital area. If you don't arrive within 2 hours, the measures against you by the Ministry of Political Security will be upgraded." After listening to Mo Yanshao's words on the phone, Du Bin's head went blank. His face was as pale as his head, and the hand holding the phone was trembling. Suddenly, the phone in his hand and the Secret Service communication watch on his hand seemed to become hot to the touch. Du Bin wanted to throw these two things away from his hands, but he did not have the courage. His trembling hands shrank back again. When Mo Yanshao said on the phone that the security review process has now begun, the positioning, monitoring and human body sensing functions of these two items had been turned on. He was already under surveillance. If he dared to put if these two things, especially the Secret Service communication watch, are thrown away from him, the measures taken by the Political Security Department against him will be escalated in the next second, and he will become a wanted criminal in an instant, and all summoners within a radius of 20 kilometers near him will be arrested. The powerful department will receive his wanted order, and this is the disciplinary requirement of the powerful department. What happened? Why was Mo Yan suddenly appointed and promoted to Deputy Director of the First Bureau of the Ministry of Political Security? You know, just 3 hours before coming to Xuanhuan Mountain, Du Bin had just asked Mo Yanshao to complete a fatigue bombing-style cooperation investigation. How come everything changed in just a few hours? Something must have happened that he didn't know about to cause such an astonishing change. This change made Du Bin, who had a guilty conscience, feel extremely flustered and suffocated. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 743. The Order Committee now obeys the leadership of the Military Control Committee, and although Mo Yan is now cooperating with his investigation, his duties and status within the Yazhu Provincial Order Committee have not changed, and he is still performing his duties normally. Therefore, Mo Yan the minor officer was promoted 2 levels from the Order Committee of Yazhu Province to the Political and Security Department of the Military Control Commission to serve as the Deputy Director of the First Bureau. From a procedural point of view, there is no problem at all, because the Military Control Commission now implements wartime regulations, and the superior officers can determine many things. Could it be that Wang Zai has been reinstated? It is impossible. Even if Wang Zai is reinstated, he is not that capable, and he has not heard any news. There must be someone with greater energy than Wang Zai. Take action, otherwise, Mo Yanxiao's identity would not have changed so much. Could it be that there is some connection behind young Master Mo Yan that he doesn't know about? Several names on the Presidium of the Military Control Commission flashed through Du Bin's mind, and each of these names made him tremble. At this moment, Du Bin finally felt the despair that a hard and cold system would bring to the people standing opposite it. Before, he was using this system to crush others. Now, it's his turn. In the face of such a system, people like him are just ants once they lose the aura of protecting the body. The Secret Service communication watch on his hand is like a cold shackle made of steel at this moment. It was like a pair of cold institutional eyes staring at him, giving him goosebumps all over his body, but he didn't dare to throw away what he was holding. Du Bin staggered from the garden to the hall. Before leaving here, he had to give a brief explanation of his situation to the big boss. This was his life-saving straw, and he was just a pawn of the big boss. Near the balcony of the hall, in just this minute, there was another man beside the beautiful daughter of the president of the Imperial Development Bank. The two were chatting happily, but Du Bin was not even interested in taking a look. He loosened his tie, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and scanned the place full of celebrities in a panic, trying to find the figure of the big shot. Finally, Du Bin saw the big guy. The big guy was on the second floor of the hall. He was walking to a conspicuous position on the second floor. Du Bin quickened his pace and wanted to squeeze through, but unexpectedly, the big guy when I came to the balcony on the second floor, I tapped the quilt on my hand lightly and spoke. It's rare that all of you are here today. Let me say a few words. The boss spoke, his voice was low, deep, not angry or intimidating. The originally lively hall suddenly became quiet. Those people who were talking eloquently about various current situations and issues, like well-disciplined primary school students, suddenly became quiet. Everyone raised their head slightly and looked at the balcony on the second floor of the hall. The man standing there looked like a king. In a sense, that person is indeed the uncrowned king of the Great Yan Kingdom and the capital area. This is the first family of the Great Yan Kingdom. Du Bin passed through the crowd standing in the hall and squeezed towards the stairs. But just as he was about to go up the stairs, 2 strong men in black uniforms stretched out their arms and blocked his way. In front of him, he stopped him from going up and looked at him with vigilant eyes. "Sir, please stay." A man spoke in a low voice. These 2 men were bodyguards of the Luo family, high-level summoners, and their strength was comparable to that of Du Bin. "I am Du Bin from the Internal Affairs Supervision Department. Let me go up. I suddenly have something to do and I have to leave here. Now I want to say goodbye to Mr. Luo." Du Bin smiled and whispered, because the Secret Service communication watch was monitoring his every move. So Du Bin didn't dare to say anything outrageous. He could only say that it was in line with the current atmosphere and environment. Guests invited here should leave early. Naturally, they should explain it to the host. This is basic etiquette. Even if the people listening over there heard it, they wouldn't be able to find anything wrong with it. "Mr. Luo is speaking. Please wait a moment. I will convey it to Mr. Luo later." The 2 men spoke politely, but with firm attitudes. Seeing that Luo Ting had begun to speak and the two people in front of him refused to give way, Du Bin had to suppress the panic in his heart, glanced at the time on his watch, and waited patiently. He would return to his office in an hour and a half. That's enough, he can wait a while. Luo Ting stood on the balcony on the second floor of the hall, with a strange smile on his face, looking at the people below. His voice echoed in the hall. As the owner of this place, I am very grateful to all of you for coming to our home for tonight's cocktail party. The celebrities in the hall, who had their faces slightly raised, burst into polite but warm applause. The current situation in the Great Yan Kingdom is so difficult. Our country is in crisis. The provincial capital of Mizhu province just fell a few days ago. Just in the south of the Great Yan Kingdom, magic rats and zombies infected with the K virus are attacking raging, people are dying every moment on this planet. Just on the border, there are countless soldiers and summoners of the Order Committee standing by to guard our country and protect our safety. It is because of their existence that we can be here. Drink to your heart's content and enjoy the happy night of champagne beauties. Only then can you drink fine wine and guide the country. We should thank them and those who stick to their posts for the stability and prosperity of the Great Yan Kingdom. The applause this time was a little sparser compared to the last time, because many people found that Luo Ting's speech seemed a little awkward, and the expressions on some people's faces began to become unnatural, so when they applauded, they just not as enthusiastic as last time. But Luo Ting was still smiling, not caring about the reactions of those below. When the applause stopped, he continued talking. So, just before I came here, I had made an important decision. I decided to do something for those who served the country, for those who lost their loved ones and homes in the disaster, and for Great Yan. I want to do something for the country because I feel I have the ability and the obligation to do something for them. I see. The applause in the hall became enthusiastic again. Those who had looked a little unnatural just now suddenly felt relieved and had smiles on their faces. This is the pattern. Many people said secretly in their hearts, looking at the man who was once the number one figure in the Great Yan Kingdom with admiration. When the country is in crisis and is in danger, what the country needs most is two things. One thing is material and money. As long as there is enough money and enough wealth, we can have sufficient supplies to deal with it. Disasters can help more people in need rebuild their homes and protect our country. Soldiers on the front line can also use more equipment and have better security levels. The second thing the country needs is spirituality. It is to let everyone in this country see the hope of victory, to see the brilliance of the sword of justice, to see that our government is still clean, powerful, and serving this country, and to see our strong determination to overcome difficulties. It was so well said that the applause in the hall was instantly warm and reached its peak, and every guest's face was filled with brilliance. Luo Ting smiled, looked at the applauding people, raised his hands, and the applause gradually subsided. So, just now, in my study, I have controlled our family's family accounts in several major banks in Europe, and presented them to everyone. Yangguo's National Reconstruction Foundation has transferred and donated 2.8 trillion yuan of wealth. This 2.8 trillion yuan of wealth was originally the ill-gotten wealth and black gold that our family has seized from this country for 2 generations. Now, I think it is time to transfer this money. It has been returned to this country again. As long as the money is still lying in our family's overseas account, if there is any trouble in the bank in Europe, I will not be able to sleep or eat well, and I will feel deeply guilty. The atmosphere in the hall was like freezing at this moment, and you could hear the drop of a pin. All the celebrity guests looked at Luo Ting in stunned silence. Their expressions had completely changed. Some even thought they were dreaming and slapped themselves twice on the face. Found that all this is actually true. But Luo Ting continued to talk with a smile. This is the first thing I do for the country, and the second thing I do for the country is that I want to confess to everyone here that our Luo family, my father and I have actually already we colluded with the Devil's Eye and betrayed the great Yan kingdom and the people of this country. We should be judged. Just under this mountain, in my father's secret room, my father just used the secret method of the Devil's Eye to torture and kill a child. Absorbed the child's life energy, and then threw the child's body into a deep pit full of crocodiles. My father is already dead. He had an accident when he was connecting with the Devil's Eye. He died ugly. Under the instructions of the Devil's Eye, I also did a lot of despicable things. I have placed many people in many departments of Dian Kingdom. Through them, I am always sending people from Dian Kingdom's National Defense Intelligence and Order Committee. Mobilize the situation to report to the Devil's Eye and attack those who are fighting against the Devil's Eye. The explosion of the Pacific Fleet's weapons depot last year was actually arranged by me in order to put pressure on the Committee of Order. I have been blocking the passage of the Great Yan country's law to severely punish the trafficking of children and women regardless of public opinion. It is because of the relationship between our family and the devil. I is a beneficiary of the global network of trafficking in children and women. My father needs those children to extend his life and youth. Devil Eye needs people to sacrifice. I have also done many things that betray the country and the people. Everyone in our family there is no clean money. If we cooperate with Devil's Eye, we can protect our family's overseas black gold deposits from being exposed, and we can keep our family at the top of the power pyramid of this country forever. I regret it very much. Those things I have done before, but today, I must give an explanation to the country, rebuild everyone's confidence in the country, and let the sword of justice show its due edge. I think there is no need for such a dirty bloodline like our Luo family. It continues, I'm sorry. Luo Ting said. Suddenly a pistol appeared in his hand, pointed it at his head, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Boom! Luo Ting fell down, and the bullet passed through Luo Ting's head, opening a bloody hole as big as a fist in his skull. The bullet then hit the chandelier on the ceiling, and a string of crystals, brains, and blood on the chandelier. After coming down from the second floor, the crystal hit the ground. The blood and brains stained the white evening dress of a lady downstairs who was looking up. Some sticky things even fell on the lady's wine glass. Inside and on the half-exposed breasts. Ah! The lady downstairs let out a piercing scream, and everyone in the hall suddenly became confused as if they had just woken up from a dream. Du Ben, who was standing at the top of the stairs, stared blankly at everything in front of him. His whole body was stiff, his mind was blank, and his whole body was trembling. With deep fear, the big man actually committed suicide in front of him. The most powerful first family of the Yan kingdom was finished like this. Du Ben still couldn't understand what happened tonight. He felt that it was like a terrifying nightmare that silently enveloped the entire world and made the capital circle blink. Everything changed in the blink of an eye. The entire hall suddenly became chaotic, and countless people were running in panic, trying to get out of here. Wang Zai was still looking at the time on his hand on the rotorcraft hovering in the air. 18 minutes after Xiaopingan left here, wind seemed to blow in the cabin of the rotor helicopter. Wang Zai turned his head and discovered that Xiaopingan had returned. Xiaopingan's face was calm, and he just nodded lightly to Wang Zai. The matter is done. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 744. Luo Zhenxiao is dead. The old man looked at Xiaopingan in disbelief. In just such a short time, the most powerful summoner in the Yan kingdom died. It really made him a little unbelievable. The key point was that the old man had been paying attention to the movements on the side of Qiuashi Mountain. From Xiaopingan's departure to now, there was no fluctuation of divine power coming from the side of Qiuashi Mountain. Everything was very calm and there was no summons. The two teachers fought against each other. In this case, Luo Zhenxiao died. It was so surprising. Luo Zhenxiao colluded with Devil's Eye. The evidence is conclusive. He has been killed by me. In addition to Luo Zhenxiao, Luo Ting is also dead. Luo Ting committed suicide in public. Before Luo Ting committed suicide, I had asked Luo Ting to keep the Luo family in Europe. The deposits in the bank account, totaling 2.8 trillion, were transferred to the National Reconstruction Foundation of Dian Kingdom. Xiaopinggan said calmly. What? The old man was shocked. Xiaopinggan had only left for less than 20 minutes. The stubborn diseases and cancers plaguing the entire capital area of the Great Yan Kingdom were actually solved so easily. Not only were they solved, they were also returned to the country. With an increase of 2.8 trillion in wealth, it all sounds like someone is joking. I guess you will receive the message soon. Xiaopinggan had just finished speaking, and the old man was about to say something. The emergency encrypted phone he carried with him suddenly vibrated. The old man picked up the phone and connected it. The call was from Li Chongyang. Li Chongyang's voice on the phone was extremely solemn. Mr. Wang, there is urgent news from Qiashi Mountain. Something big has happened. I have asked the Special Operations Force of the Order Committee and the Ministry of Political Security to rush to the scene urgently. Go to Qiashi Mountain, and at the same time send out the capital garrison, prepare to block the traffic arteries in the capital area, and put the capital area under curfew. What happened at Qiashi Mountain? The old man asked calmly. Li Chongyang on the other side of the phone said in a deep voice, Luo Ting shot himself in public at the reception. Before Luo Ting committed suicide, he also exposed that the Luo family was colluding with the Devil's Eye. Luo Ting said that Luo Zhenxiao was dead, in Qiashi Mountain. In the underground secret room, he also transferred the Luo family's 2.8 trillion family black gold to the National Reconstruction Foundation of Dian. The International Bank Clearing Center has called me to confirm that the International Bank Clearing Center has received the transfer from the European Bank. The incoming 2.8 trillion fund liquidation request. The old man was shocked. He glanced at Xiaopinggan. He didn't expect that what Xiaopinggan said was true. The old man immediately looked serious. Chairman, don't worry, I will rush to Qiashi Mountain now. Everything is as planned. Okay, I understand. I'll be relieved if you go. You will be responsible for commanding the Special Operations Forces of the Order Committee and the Ministry of Political Security. Understood. After hanging up the phone, the old man looked at the military airport of the capital region garrison in the distance. The airport seemed to have become busy instantly. Planes began to take off and land, and the entire capital region began to wake up from the dark night. Even though the old man has experienced countless big scenes in his life, at this moment, he still felt his heart beating like thunder, and his palms began to sweat. The old man looked at Xiaopinggan, and for the first time he felt that Xiaopinggan was so strange and awe-inspiring. The young man is no longer the person he is familiar with, but a terrifying and powerful man who can subvert all orders and destroy all fortresses with just a few clicks. His confidence comes from his strength. Old man, I'll leave this to you. The current situation should be exactly what you need and can be controlled. The initiative now is in our hands. I want to leave the capital area temporarily. There are important things that need to be dealt with. In the short term, I will be back in 1 day, or as long as 3 days, and all problems will be solved when I come back. The capital area will be a bit chaotic these 2 days. I have arranged forces to protect Xianing. Master, please pay attention to her. Don't let anything happen to Xianing, Xiaopinggan said to the old man. Need to leave the metropolitan area for something important? That is to say, for Xiaopinggan, the current situation facing the capital area of Dian Kingdom is not the most important to him. Are there more important things? Okay, I will have someone protect Xianing. The old man was surprised and nodded. He was about to say something else, but found that a gust of wind blew by and Xiaopinggan had disappeared. The old man looked sadly at the dark night sky outside the rotorcraft, took a deep breath, calmed down, and directly ordered the pilot to go to Kyoshi Mountain, because he had already seen a few cars with the emblem of the Ministry of Political Security in the distance. The rotorcraft flew towards Kyoshi Mountain. The lamplighters of the order committee on the ground probably also received the order and were gathering towards Kyoshi Mountain. The fluctuations of divine power from Kyoshi Mountain began to be transmitted intensively. Xiaoping'an, who left the old man, had already sunk deep underground in the blink of an eye, moving quickly underground. For Xiaoping'an, the so-called important thing is of course the dream demon. He and the dream demon just had an indirect confrontation in the spirit world. Although he killed Luo Zhenxiao and shattered an important puppet of the dream demon in controlling the Great Yan Kingdom, if the dream demon is not eliminated, the earth will never have peace. Puppet like Luo Zhenxiao, the incubus can always find a lot of them. When he came back this time, the real battle was with him and the dream demon, not with anyone else. In Xiaoping'an's eyes, trash like Luo Zhenxiao was just an insignificant person. After escaping tens of thousands of meters underground, he found a place to hide, protected the place with a formation disc, and released a few puppet spiders. Then, Xiaoping'an entered the spirit world as quickly as possible. After entering the spiritual world, the spirit body moved around, first returning to the original body, then entering the spiritual world temple from the original body, and then entered the fortress through the teleportation arch of the spiritual world temple and appeared in the square of the fortress. If Xiaoping'an flew back to this fortress from the spirit world, he didn't know how long it would take, but returning through the technique of clone would only take the blink of an eye. "See your majesty." Mu Lao's figure appeared in front of Zi Xiaoping'an almost the moment Xiaoping'an appeared in the fortress square. He bowed to Xiaoping'an and looked at Xiaoping'an. Mu Lao's eyes flashed. Beaming with joy, with a smile on his face, "Congratulations to your majesty, congratulations to your majesty, your majesty's soul power has been condensed and increased, and will soon form a moon soul. The advanced priest is just around the corner. As long as your majesty condenses his own starry sky realm in the spiritual world, you can open up your own secret realm in the spiritual world." As Xiaoping'an waved his hand, a golden light poured into Mu Lao's body, making Mu Lao's body suddenly more brilliant and staring. Mr. Mu was startled and waved his hand quickly. "Your Majesty, it's such a waste. I can't use so much soul power." "Mr. Mu, you must guard the fortress without any mistakes," Xiaoping'an said. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. Over the past few days, I have gradually repaired many powerful secret techniques in the fortress. The fortress is impregnable and there will be no problems," Mr. Mu replied confidently. "Okay, thank you for your hard work, Mr. Mu. I would like to ask, Mr. Mu, do you know how many portals there are to enter this spiritual world from the Yuan-Kai world, and where are they?" Mu Lao suddenly looked stern, as if he had thought of something. Why did your majesty suddenly ask this question?" "Because my mortal enemy, the dream demon, has come to the spiritual world of this world and started making trouble." Mu Lao thought for a while, then said slowly and solemnly, "There are two portals from the Yuan-Kai world to this world, one is in our fortress, and there is another portal in another fortress." Why didn't you tell me before?" Xiaoping'an was surprised. "The other fortress is called Xuanhuan Fortress. As far as I know, that fortress was the first to fall. The demonic energy there is the strongest. The pastors and pastors of the entire fortress were reduced to puppet corpses. No one was spared. I was afraid that His Majesty would be tempted to take risks after knowing it, so I never told your Majesty." "Mr. Mu, some things are unavoidable. Please tell me, where is Xuanhuan Fortress?" Mu Lao sighed, waved his hand, and a map appeared in front of Xiaoping'an. "Xuanhuan Fortress is within the Endless Canyon, more than 20,000 miles away from here. The top of the Endless Canyon corresponds to the deepest point in the material world. Where the trench is. Xiaopinggan glanced at the map, and in the next second, he soared into the sky, flashing like a meteor in the sky. The Flame King appeared, and then the Flame King roared in the sky like a bolide. Then, like an arrow, it flew towards Xuanhuan Fortress. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 745. Boom. As soon as the Flame King stepped out, the scorching flames rolled away along the ground. The hundreds of various puppet corpses rushing from the ground were all reduced to ashes in the rolling flames. At the same time, the flaming whip on Vajra's hand swung out, sweeping across the void for thousands of meters. Dozens of nightmare insects flying in the void were rolled up by the flaming whip, and their entire bodies burned. They struggled to fly away, just like the flame kite was only lit, but it didn't fly a few steps before it turned into ashes and fell in the air. The Flame King Kong stands in the canyon like a steel giant, with flames flashing all over his body, and there is almost no weakness or gap for the enemy to attack. After destroying those nightmare insects and puppet corpses, countless soul powers turned into bits of starlight and converged towards the Flame King Kong again, filling Xiaopinggan's soul power again. Here is the endless canyon of the spiritual world on earth. At this moment, Xiaopinggan has gone deep into the canyon. The entire endless canyon is a huge abyss-like gap, allowing it to spread from the surface to the endless underground depths. Above the canyon, black demonic energy is thicker than anywhere else. In this place, there are rugged, dark rocks, zombies, and nightmare insects everywhere, and there are so many of them that they are terrifying. On both sides of the canyon, everywhere they are all large and small dark caves, and the nightmare insects and zombies emerge from the caves on both sides from time to time, attacking in waves after waves. Xiaopinggan rushed down from the top and bombarded them for more than 10 minutes. The puppet corpses and nightmare insects finally knew the power of the Flame King Kong in front of them. After the new wave of nightmare insects and puppet corpses were turned into cannon fodder, the endless canyon was instantly silent, and all the nightmare insects and zombies retreated into those caves, no longer showing their heads. Xiaopinggan finally understood why Mulao was worried that something would happen to him when he came here, because in addition to the puppet corpses and nightmare insects, the black evil energy that filled the place was as omnipresent as a shadow. Ever since the Flame King Kong flew in, that groups of black demonic energy were like iron filings attracted by magnets. Pieces of black demonic energy tightly surrounded the Flame King Kong. The flames ignited all over the Flame King Kong made the black demonic energy sizzle. Keep the black demonic energy from approaching, and once the flames stop for a moment, the black energy will approach again and rush towards it, as if it wants to devour the Flame King Kong. Under the shroud of these black demonic energies, the soul power required to drive the Flame King began to increase greatly. Finally, after Xiaopinggan passed through a large piece of black fog in the endless canyon, he finally saw the fortress at the bottom of the canyon. The fortress was a black cube, as high as a hill, and everything in this fortress was enclosed there. It is not revealed in the cube. This fortress is the same as the fortress on the map that Mulao showed him before. It is another portal from the world of Yuan to the spiritual world of the earth. It is right here. There are several entrances below the cube fortress. The tallest one is only about 10 meters high. It is just higher than the instep of the Flame King and is less than the knees of the Flame King. It is impossible for the Flame King to enter the fortress through it. Then the fortress seems to be accessible only to humans. At the entrance of the fortress, there are two other Flame King Kongs standing. The other two Flame King Kongs are exactly the same as the Flame King Kong that Xiaopinggan merged into one, except that they are dark and mottled, even slightly worn and vicissitudes of life, and some parts of the body have been damaged. Two Flame King Kongs guard the entrance to the fortress, like door gods. One of the Flame King Kong holds a giant sword in his hand, and the other Flame King Kong holds a sledgehammer in his hand. Seeing the two Flame King Kongs in front of the fortress, Xiaopinggan immediately raised his vigilance. In such an environment, the soul stones of the two Flame King Kongs had definitely been contaminated by demonic energy. He just didn't know if they could still survive. Move. Facts have proved that Xiaopinggan's worries were correct. Just when Xiaopinggan quickly approached the fortress, which was only about 10,000 meters away, the eyes of the two contaminated Flame King Kongs guarding the entrance of the fortress suddenly opened, like a blood-red lamp. He suddenly looked towards Xiaopinggan. Then, in the next second, there was a loud bang, and the two Flame King Kongs suddenly moved, covered in black energy, and rushed directly towards Xiaopinggan. The Flame King holding the giant sword swung the giant sword in his hand, and the giant sword more than 100 meters long slashed directly towards Xiaopinggan's neck. As the giant sword was swung, all the canyon ground within a kilometer was frozen, and a wave of the lifeless and cold breath swept directly over. And the Fire Crow King Kong holding the giant hammer had already leaped into the air, his entire figure leaping thousands of meters into the air. He held the hammer high in both hands and smashed it towards Xiaopinggan's head with the force of Mount Tai. Down. As soon as the two flame diamonds moved, the entire valley shook. Facing the flanking attacks of the two Flame King Kongs, Xiaopinggan did not retreat but advanced. With a wave of his hand, the huge flame whip appeared in his hand. With a wave of the burning whip, the whip shattered the void. Suddenly it caught one of the legs of the Flaming King Kong flying from the sky with a sledgehammer. Xiaopinggan yanked hard, and the Flaming King Kong in the sky was rolled up by the long whip in Xiaopinggan's hand, like a meteor hammer. The same thing, whistling, slammed down from the sky, and hit the body of the Flame King who was charging towards me with a giant sword. Rumble. The collision between the three Flame King Kongs caused the earth to shake, and the entire ground was trembling. Countless stones and soil rolled down on both sides of the endless canyon, and a large crater of several hundred meters was suddenly smashed into the ground. Smoke and dust spewed from the ground, like a volcanic eruption. Before the two Flame King Kongs could fly out of the pit, Xiaopinggan had already flown to the edge of the pit. Boom! A giant sword was slashed out from the smoke-filled pit. Xiaopinggan accelerated fiercely, being flexible and brave. The body of the Flame King that merged with him suddenly avoided the attack of the giant sword. One of Xiaopinggan's hands suddenly turned red and burned, with a scorching heat. The high temperature penetrated into the head of the Flaming King Kong wielding the giant sword with a bang, and the head of the Flaming King Kong shattered directly. Almost at the same time, a giant hammer hit Xiaopinggan's head with overwhelming force. Xiaopinggan raised a hand, and there was a flame shield in that hand, and he took it hard. Received a blow from that giant hammer. Boom! The huge force shook Xiaopinggan's body violently, the flame shield shattered all of a sudden, and the huge body of the Flame King knelt half on the ground, and the parts below the knees were submerged dozens of meters underground. The power of this hammer was so terrifying that the shock wave was like an earthquake, with a rumbling sound, and spread like a wave along the ground of the endless canyon toward the distance. The giant hammer was raised again, and Xiaopinggan's other hand had already taken the giant sword from the fallen Flame King Kong next to him. Before the hammer came down, the giant sword in Xiaopinggan's hand, it had already slashed out fiercely, directly hitting the neck of the Flame King holding the giant hammer. Boom! The giant sword cut through the metal armor on the neck of the Flame King, half of it penetrated into the neck, but was blocked. Xiaopinggan exerted force, and the ground cracked under his feet. He pushed the giant sword with both hands and flew forward, advancing towards the fortress in front like a rocket. The giant sword got stuck on the neck of the Flaming King Kong and continued to cut in. It was like a huge bulldozer pushing the Flame King Kong with the giant hammer forward. In the blink of an eye, the huge figures of the two Flame King Kongs left a huge trench tens of meters deep and several kilometers long on the ground of the canyon. A few seconds later, when the Flame King's back hit the huge cubic fortress behind him with a loud bang, the giant sword in Xiaopinggan's hand finally completely cut through the Flame King's neck with a click. A huge and rotten head fell to the ground with a bang, and the huge metal body that was struggling before suddenly softened, and fell to the ground like a jade pillar pushing down a mountain of gold. The battle between the three Flame King Kongs is over. In just over 10 seconds of confrontation, the entire canyon in front of the fortress was in a mess, as if it had encountered a catastrophe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 746. After killing the two guards contaminated by the demonic energy in a blink of an eye, Xuanhuan was not idle. The huge cube fortress was right in front of him, within reach. The giant sword slashed towards the dark fortress wall in front of him. The power of the Flame King Kong is so great, and with a weapon in his hand, the power of this blow is extraordinary. With a bang, smoke and dust filled the air before his eyes, and a huge shockwave bounced off the walls of the fortress, scraping off a layer of the ground within 100 meters of Xuanhuan's position. Looking at the giant sword in his hand, under this head-on attack, the sword crackled and some cracks had appeared. However, the wall of the fortress struck by the giant sword was almost unscathed, leaving only a faint trace. Still dark and dull, as hard as gold and iron. The Flame King took a step back, clenched his flaming iron fist, summoned all his strength, and punched the fortress wall again, leaving a sword mark. With a loud bang, the ground shook slightly, and the shockwave bounced back from the fortress wall again like a wave hitting a dam, scraping away a layer of ground, but the dark wall of the fortress remained intact. Xuanhuan understood that not even the Flame King Kong could destroy the outer perimeter of the fortress in front of him, he could only go inside and see. In a flash of light and shadow, the Flame King Kong standing in front of the fortress wall disappeared and turned back into the necklace hanging on Xuanhuan's chest. Xuanhuan was already standing on the ground and walking towards the nearby fortress gate. The surrounding black demonic energy was like piranhas smelling blood, swarming in from all around. Xuanhuan's face was calm, and a flame-like halo rose up on his body, resisting all the demonic energy outside his body. And as Xuanhuan thought, a set of Chinese silver bright light armor appeared on Xuanhuan's body bit by bit in the brilliant light, protecting Xuanhuan's entire body, torso, head, hands, face, and feet. It seems that this is a skill that only high-level pastors have begun to master, using thoughts to create things. After mastering this skill, everything in the spiritual world has infinite plasticity and possibility in the eyes of high-level pastors. The entire spiritual world is like a huge dream that can undergo various changes. As the level of the pastor increases, the ability to create things with thoughts will gradually increase. Xuanhuan's hand flashed with light, and a weapon that looked like the seven-star sword whip appeared. The sword whip in this hand is made of thoughts. Although it does not have the same soul weapon blessing effect as the seven-star sword whip, the attack methods are the same and ever-changing. There is no danger in this cube fortress, so there is one that can be. It is necessary to have an attack weapon that can be used at both near and far distances. The mutilated body of the fortress guard who had just been killed by Xuanhuan and was contaminated by the demonic energy sat at the foot of the wall of the cube fortress, with his head drooped, like a decayed metal sculpture. The guard's huge head fell to the ground, and there was a house. It was so big that it made a hole in the ground. When Xuanhuan passed by the head that fell to the ground made a clicking sound, and a black shadow suddenly emerged from the head and rushed towards Xuanhuan fiercely. Looking at the dark figure rushing towards him, Xuanhuan flashed and was more than 10 meters away. The black shadow continued to pounce, with red eyes, bared teeth, and claws, holding a dark dagger in its hand, fierce and direct. Xuanhuan frowned slightly. He was not too surprised. The black figure that rushed towards him was a puppet corpse. The puppet corpse in front of him was the same as other puppet corpses that Xuanhuan had seen. The body was somewhat corrupt and it was wearing tattered armor. Remaining with the instinct to kill, This puppet was probably at least a high-level pastor before, operating the fortress guards, but was later contaminated by demonic energy, and has been silent in the control center of the fortress guards. The head of the fortress guard in front was smashed by him, so the puppet corpse inside also dissipated, but the puppet corpse in front of him could still move. Looking at the puppet corpse rushing over, Xiaopingan shook the sword whip in his hand. The sword whip burned and made a snapping sound in the air. The moment the puppet corpse rushed over, the tail of the sword whip had already broken through the air. The scream, with a speed exceeding the speed of sound, and with the light of fire, instantly penetrated the head of the zombie, and exploded the head of the zombie into pieces. The entire puppet corpse burned, like a lit torch, turning into ashes in the blink of an eye. A little bit of starlight-like soul power gathered towards Xiaopingan again and was absorbed by Xiaopingan. After killing the puppet corpse, Xiaopingan continued to walk towards the gate of the fortress. The gate of the fortress is like a long tunnel. Walking in this quiet passage, Xiaopingan's footsteps can be heard clearly. The passage is dark and filled with demonic energy. On both sides of the gate, there are stone statues in the fortress. Guard. Most of the stone statue guards have turned into rubble and ruins, scattered in the passage, but there are still a few slightly damaged stone statue guards standing on both sides of the passage. As Xiaopingan entered, the eyes of the stone statue guards who were still standing suddenly lit up and glowed red. The necks of the stone statue guards turned and stared at Xiaopingan, their stone bodies clicking like rusty machines. Amidst the clicking sound, he gradually started to move and raised the weapon in his hand. The stone statue guards Xiaopingan met before can identify the identities of people entering fortresses and fortresses. Those stone statue guards will only attack nightmare insects and zombies, but will not attack entrants with the aura of pastors. And these stone statues in this fortress, the guards seem to have been seriously contaminated by the demonic energy and could no longer distinguish Xiaopingan's aura. Seeing a stone statue guard rushing toward him with a mace, Xiaopingan had no choice but to take action. As soon as the sword whip came out, the stone statue guards were scattered into rubble on the ground. After Xiaopingan smashed a stone guard, more and more stone statue guards in the passage rushed towards Xiaopingan. Fortunately, these stone statue guards were seriously polluted by the demonic energy, and their combat power had dropped significantly, making them appear a bit stiff. If these stone statue guards were really like the stone statue guards in Mulao Guard's fortress, they would probably be really difficult to deal with. Xiaopingan waved his sword and whip, like a mad dragon, and his whole body was like a flaming arrow, rushing towards the fortress without touching the ground. The sword whip continued to emit blasts that exceeded the speed of sound in the passage. Smash the stone statue guards that rush up. In just 7 or 8 minutes, after smashing the last stone guard, Xiaopingan finally passed through the long dark passage in the fortress and finally entered the interior of the fortress. A huge sky dome is inside the fortress. The entire fortress is hollow. Under the sky dome is a huge fortress square. In the middle of the fortress square is a high platform. On the high platform, there is a huge arched portal to the spiritual world. The portal is shining brightly and can still be used. Except for the portal to the spiritual world, many of the layouts in this fortress, such as the Muling Hall and other buildings, are basically the same as the fortress where Mr. Mu is located, except that the demonic clothing looks more shabby. This is it. Xiaopingan was shocked when he saw the portal to the spiritual world. This is where the dream demon comes in. As long as this spiritual world portal is destroyed, no one will be able to enter the spiritual world of the earth at will in the future. The only portal to enter the spiritual world of the earth is in your own hands, and a hidden danger to the earth can be eliminated. If the dream demon has not escaped yet and he destroys this portal, then he will be closing the door and beating the dog, and the dream demon will not be able to escape. It's possible that the dream demon has escaped, but it's also possible that the dream demon didn't come here as fast as he did, so he got here first. Several zombies roared and rushed towards Xiaoping'an from several directions in the fortress square with red eyes. These puppet corpses were just a piece of cake to Xiaoping'an, there was nothing special about them. In the blink of an eye, they were burned to ashes under Xiaoping'an's sword whip, adding some soul power to Xiaoping'an in vain. After killing those puppet corpses, Xiaoping'an did not be careless, but carefully observed the surroundings of the square. After confirming that there was nothing abnormal around, he came to the center of the square where the spiritual world arch passage was, and carefully stepped onto the high platform. The stone steps lead towards the spiritual world portal. As a high-level pastor, he naturally knows how to destroy the portal passage into the spiritual world. It is very simple. The star-like protrusions on the spiritual world portal are actually the coordinates of these portals and are also connected to the spiritual world. In the space passage, those protruding things are special soul stones. As long as those soul stones are buckled off the arch or destroyed, the portal to the spiritual world will be scrapped and closed. Just when Xiaoping'an came to the last high platform where the arched portal was located, a sudden change occurred. The arch of the spiritual world passage suddenly looked like a dam that had broken. The raging black water suddenly poured out of the passage. It poured out from the arches and filled the entire fortress. The black flood was a condensation of completely substantive demonic energy, possessing terrifying abilities. Under the impact of the raging black flood, the originally strong fortress began to collapse and decay bit by bit under Xiaoping'an's eyes. In addition, in the black flood, strange insects similar to nightmare insects were writhing in the black flood, baring their teeth and claws, like monsters in the torrent, those monsters in the turbulent black water and the black water. Xiaoping'an was immediately surrounded, surging, squeezing, and devouring everything around Xiaoping'an. A circle of fierce flames rose up from Xiaoping'an's body, and the sword whip in his hand was whirling, and he was able to resist the black flood and the monsters in the flood. Tisk. A few drops of rolling black water splashed on Xiaoping'an's armor. The armor instantly turned black, melted away by the demonic energy, and turned into nothingness. Xiaoping'an's expression changed. He had just tried it with the sword whip and the Nightmare Slayer sword. Those black floods and the nightmare insect-like monsters in the flood could withstand any attack and destroy anything he created with his thoughts. Thing. Ha ha ha, Xiaoping'an, you are finally in my hands. I have been waiting for this day for many years. The dream demon walked out from the other side of the spiritual world passage and stepped on a tumbling tree in the flood. An even bigger monster stood on top of the huge waves, looking down at Xiaoping'an, who was surrounded by the black huge waves, and let out bursts of proud laughter. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 747. Incubus. Xiaoping'an raised his head and looked at the wild and unbridled face of the dream demon standing on a monster on the black waves, and his heart sank slightly. The aura of the dream demon at this moment was completely different from the last time Xiaoping'an saw him. It was cold and powerful, almost as good as the Lord of the Golden Moon Palace. It seemed that the dream demon did have a lot of energy after leaving Shangjing City. Encounter. There is a lot of meaning in what Dream Demon just said. If Xiaoping'an understood it correctly, everything today is a trap set by Dream Demon for himself. Dream Demon has been preparing here for many years, just waiting for him to step into it today. Enter this trap. Xiaoping'an once again learned how cunning and difficult the Dream Demon is. Last time in Shangjing City, he set up a trap, but in the end he let him run away. Unexpectedly, this time, he stepped into the Dream Demon's trap. Roar. Among the black waves, a monster opened its bloody mouth and stretched out its neck and mouth covered with black scales like a crocodile. The moment Xiaoping'an raised his head and looked at the Dream Demon, it emerged from the flood and opened its mouth to bite Xiaoping'an's neck. The monster's head was larger than Xiaoping'an's entire body. The sword whip exploded, and the tip of the rattlesnake-like sword whip made a roaring tremolo, like a line of fire, flying directly into the monster's bloody mouth and sinking into the monster's throat. Ordinary monsters, nightmare insects, even humanoid nightmares, would have died long ago under such an attack, but that monster was particularly terrifying. It closed its mouth with a click and directly bit off the thread of Xiaopinggan's creation. The sword whip swallowed up the burning sword whip into his stomach. His head shrank back, but he was knocked back, but he did not die. After letting out a roar, his whole head was submerged into the black wave, and half of his body was thrown away. Disappeared in a flash. The black wave surrounding Xiaopinggan rolled, extending from the ground to the dome of the entire fortress. In the black waves, countless monster bodies were entangled together, rolling and roaring in the black waves. At first glance, there were no less than hundreds of them. Xiaopinggan was like a rock in the storm, or like a light that was not extinguished in the heavy rain, persisting tenaciously without giving up. As soon as the sword whip was broken, Xiaopinggan's hand flashed with light. The broken sword whip disappeared. Instead, Xiaopinggan had a terrifying metal heavy hammer in his hand. At first glance, the hammerhead, almost as big as a calf, Xiaopinggan's body was blazing with flames, and he was swinging a heavy hammer with the roar of wind and thunder, knocking back a monster whose head popped out of the black waves. Since dexterous weapons are not enough, then use another weapon. Heavy duty, the heavier the better. Although the weight of the spiritual world is difficult to equate to the weight of the real material world, if the heavy hammer in Xiaopinggan's hand were in reality, it might weigh dozens of tons. It's useless. The dream demon was like a spectator sitting on a high platform in the arena, watching Xiaopinggan whispering about the black waves and the monsters in the black waves. This black flood is the 9 nether demons in the spiritual world. The water of the river is condensed by the deepest demonic energy. It can corrupt and pollute all things, restrain all things created by the spirit world, and dissolve the spirit body. It is simply impossible to resist. What is in this black surge is the 9 nether demonic river. The nightmare demon is the ancestor of the nightmare insect. As long as there is a drop of water from the 9 nether demon river, the nightmare demon can remain immortal. This is the 9 nether demon river formation carefully prepared for you. I think you can hold on to it. At some point, even if you are a high-level shepherd, once your soul power is exhausted, you will only become a ray in the 9 nether demon river formation. Residues, no, you can't even leave any residue, ha ha ha. The dream demon laughed wildly, and the look on his face was filled with high-spirited madness, extremely excited and extremely proud. Oh, really, it turns out this thing is called a nightmare monster. No wonder it's so ugly. If I kill this thing, I should take a lot of supplements. Maybe I'd like to thank you for sending me supplements today. Xiaopinggan held the heavy hand in his hand. The hammer swung to repel the attacks of the 2 nightmare monsters. The moment the heavy hammer in his hand was broken and corroded, light flashed again, and Xiaopinggan used the method of reading creation to repair and heal it. Although he has advanced to a high-level shepherd, the speed at which his soul power is consumed is too terrifying. Xiaopinggan has to defend and attack at the same time. The consumption of soul power is like running water with no end in sight. While talking, Xiaopinggan was already trying to prepare to fuse the Flame King Kong, but found that after the water of the 9 nether demon river completely enveloped him, the Flame King Kong hanging around his neck could no longer complete the fusion on this occasion. Was directly restrained. This 9 nether demon river formation is completely connected as one, like a rolling torrent. It is not like any formation known to Xiaopinggan, and cannot be broken by breaking the formation. Haha, don't bother, this is still in the fortress. Even if you fuse the Flame King Kong, under the water of the demon river, the Flame King Kong will be melted instantly, making you die faster. Water defeats fire. You don't understand. Well. The dream demon sneered as if watching a show. It's not certain who will win. Have you forgotten how your hand was cut off by me? You have to be prepared to leave more things here with me, or even be prepared to die. Haha, don't try to play tricks with me. I just want to quietly watch you die in the 9 Nether Demon River formation. If you have the ability, just use it. The Dream Demon is as cunning and cold as a rock. There was a mocking smile on the corner of his mouth. What's one arm? If you really want to say it, I have to thank you, Xiaopingan. If I hadn't discovered your whereabouts in the spirit world, I wouldn't have been the master. As a reward from the demon god, I have the current realm and strength. Speaking of which, I still want to thank you. I just need to kill you here today, and becoming a god is just around the corner. You are really my lucky star, ha ha ha. How did you know that I would definitely come here? Xiaopingan moved his hands while communicating with the Dream Demon. I was originally not sure that you could return to this world, because I didn't know where you were, and whether you could happen to find a spiritual passage back to this world. I was just betting, setting up a network in this world. If you don't come back, I will have fun in this world, turn your relatives, friends, and everyone I know into my slaves, and let the glory of the dominant demon god completely envelope this world. When the space channel is reopened, I will take you with me. Those people you know have returned to the Yuankai world. Don't you want to save this world? If this world has completely fallen, I'll see how you can save it. When the time comes, I will naturally have a way to force you out. Dream Demon laughed loudly and proudly talked about his arrangements. If you tell others about these arrangements, Dream Demon doesn't have much sense of accomplishment, but if you tell Xiaopingan, the sense of accomplishment and satisfaction makes Dream Demon drift away. He was in a state of ecstasy, feeling proud to live up to his business spirit, and if you can really return to this world through the spiritual world, then you will definitely be able to discover the hands, feet, and existence I made. So, you deliberately let the puppets you control appear next to my sister just to attract my attention. Of course, I know that with your character, once you know that I can come to this world, you have only two choices. Either you will want to stop me from leaving, or you will stop me from coming back, so this endless canyon, you will definitely come. I just need to arrange everything here and wait for you to come. The Dream Demon is indeed vicious, deep, and cunning as a fox. Regardless of whether he comes back or not, he will always have a way to deal with himself and set a trap for himself. This Dream Demon is the most difficult person he has encountered since he came to the world of Yuankai. His great enemy, he may have been weak at first, but now, this guy is becoming more and more terrifying. Do you have the ability to attract the 9 Nether Demon River on the opposite side of the spiritual world passage? I don't believe you have this strength. Haha, this is the reward given to me by the Lord Demon God. This 9 Nether Demon River formation is used to deal with you. I will give you some more ingredients. The Dream Demon said, his eyes suddenly turned cold, and he faced the trapped Xiaopingan, who was in the black wave, pointed his finger, and the countless nightmare demons in the black wave roared out, and rushed towards Xiaopingan, who was trapped in the center. Xiaopingan, it's like a target, facing countless arrows. Seeing that the Dream Demon finally took action and figured out the cause and effect, Xiaopingan finally no longer suppressed the boiling power in his body. When Xiaopingan advanced to the advanced shepherd, the innate spiritual creature that was born in his soul power sun, that strange divine bird with 6 wings, suddenly appeared when Xiaopingan was attacked by the nightmare demon just now. It became restless, as if it was suddenly awakened from a deep sleep, stretching its wings, shining brightly, and already wanted to break out of the cocoon of Xiaopingan's soul sun. Xiaopingan didn't know why the innate spiritual being in his body broke out at this time, but he could feel a trace of the innate spiritual being in his body that was ecstatic. Yes, joy, extreme joy, no fear, no mania, no anger, but joy, extreme joy, and huge excitement, which can make Xiaopingan shatter into pieces and turn into dregs at any time in the spiritual world. The water of the demonic river and the ugly, ferocious, and invulnerable nightmare demons only made Xiaopingan's innate spiritual creature happy and excited. Xiaopingan didn't know what the innate spiritual thing in his body was, and what it could do when it came out. But at this time, when life and death were at stake, he no longer suppressed it and released it directly. At this moment, Xiaopingan was in the nine nether demonic river formation, like black clouds pressing over the city, thousands of arrows piercing his heart. There was no way to escape. Suddenly, a golden light shot up from Xiaopingan's body into the sky. In that golden light, all the nine nether demon rivers that pressed against him were suddenly stirred up by a powerful force. In the golden light, pairs of huge golden wings stretched out from Xiaopingan's back, stretching dozens of meters. The light and shadow of the huge figure of Xiaopingan's innate spiritual creature finally emerged from Xiaopingan's back. The back of Xiaopingan was revealed, showing the appearance of a king who dominates all realms. He fully unfolded his 6 wings and looked down at all realms. He stood behind Xiaopingan, scanning everything around him with contempt and ruthlessness. Then, Xiaopingan seemed to hear a thunderous bird call. Just this thunderous bird cry came out, and it shot towards Xiaopingan like an arrow. With a ferocious face and a bloody mouth, it almost approached the bodies of dozens of nightmare monsters within a few meters of Xiaopingan's body. With a loud sound, everything exploded into ashes. All the other nightmare monsters in the outer circle wailed in this cry. Their bodies were soft, and they fell to the ground like huge earthworms, rolling and fearful. The soul power contained in the bodies of those nightmare monsters that were reduced to ashes and exploded, like golden torrents, surged towards Xiaopingan and was absorbed by Xiaopingan. To be honest, Xiaopingan was shocked at this moment. He didn't know what his innate spiritual creature was, and why he made these seemingly invincible nightmare monsters explode in a circle by just shouting, and other nightmare monsters exploded in a circle. All the demons fell to the ground and turned into earthworms on the ground. It felt like these nightmare demons had met their nemesis, just like slaves met their king, and they had no power to resist at all. The soul power contained in the nightmare demon's body is so damn deep. The soul power rolling in made Xiaopingan feel like he was being stretched. He almost wanted to burst Xiaopingan's body. Xiaopingan was half moved at the moment. He couldn't say a word, he just tried his best to passively absorb the surging soul power, not to let the soul power explode the soul power sun in his spiritual body. "What is that?" the dream demon screamed. His face changed drastically, and he flew towards the passage in the spiritual world without thinking. He wanted to escape first, because the giant bird that the dream demon appeared from behind Xiaopingan in his aura, he could feel the aura of fear and danger that made his heart tremble. The dream demon was very cautious and would run away without even thinking if the situation went wrong. However, it was a good thing that the dream demon didn't move. As soon as he moved, the 6-winged giant bird behind Xiaopingan immediately noticed him. The majestic 6-winged giant bird just turned around and stared at it. The dream demon felt that the space around him had turned into solid steel, and he had become like an insignificant ant solidified in the air by steel. He could no longer do anything. Move even a tiny bit. What is this? The dream demon's fear turned into complete panic and loss of control. He almost screamed. The wild and unruly face before had been completely deformed, trembling, and turned pale. The dream demon never thought that he was in the spiritual world. Ji has advanced to a high-level shepherd. At this moment, he was locked in the air by the strange bird at one glance. He could no longer move. The fear of death surged in like a tidal wave, leaving the dream demon at this moment almost scared to death. Then, the next second, under the gaze of the dream demon who was unable to speak and was fixed in the air, the 6-winged divine bird behind Xiaopingan took elegant steps and calmly left Xiaopingan. He walked out from behind, and then, like a chicken eating rice, he calmly pecked the trembling and twisting nightmare monsters on the ground into his mouth, and swallowed them one by one like eating insects. Xiaopingan had just absorbed the previous surge of soul power and was about to speak when the 6-winged divine bird began to peck at the nightmare demons. Golden soul power burst out from the pecked nightmare demons like a torrent again. The same force surged towards Xiaopinggan, and Xiaopinggan was forced to absorb it. I'm going. Xiaopinggan only had time to say these two words before his mouth was blocked by the surging soul power again. Then, under the gaze of Xiaopinggan and the dream demon, the nightmare demons on the ground did not even resist. They all lay on the ground and were pecked one by the six-winged bird. In a moment, all the nightmare demons was eaten by the six-winged bird as a worm. Then, the six-winged divine bird was still elegant and calm, taking proud steps, and stepped into the black waves of the nine-nether demon river that the dream demon said could corrode and dissolve everything. It stretched its huge wings with a relaxed expression, and used the nine-nether demon to the water of the river cleanses his wings and body. The rolling black waves and the water of the nine-nether demon river, under the gaze of Xiaopinggan and dream demon, were all absorbed by the feathers of the divine bird when it was taking a bath, causing several sprouts to grow on the divine bird's body. A long and shiny black feather. The nine-nether demonic river formation that the dream demon prepared so hard to plot against Xiaopinggan was like a fart in front of the divine bird, and nothing was left in the blink of an eye. Then, the divine bird looked at the dream demon contemptuously, stretched out a claw, and grabbed the dream demon. The dream demon could only watch helplessly as the huge bird's claw came towards him. His whole body was like a piece of paper. The next second, it was penetrated by the bird's claw, and his body was reduced to ashes. Before the spirit body was completely annihilated, the dream demon glanced at Xiaopinggan for the last time. He was speechless, but his eyes asked Xiaopinggan a question, the last question before death: what is this? Xiaopinggan could only look at dream demon helplessly, because he didn't know either. Because the dream demon had already flown to the arch of the spiritual world passage here, and the bird was still clutching it. As if it knew what Xiaopinggan was thinking, after catching the dream demon, it grabbed the arch with one claw. With a bang, the spiritual world passage in the fortress was directly scratched and collapsed, directly destroyed. Xiaopinggan was stunned. Finally, everything disappeared. The magical bird fluttered its wings, seemed to be in good spirits, and even burped lightly. The six-winged divine bird returned to Xiaopinggan again, turned into a ray of light, and submerged into the soul power sun in Xiaopinggan's body, and seemed to continue to sleep. Xiaopinggan was still unable to speak, and had closed his eyes unknowingly, because the surging soul power had caused earth-shaking changes in his spiritual body, and a soul moon had taken shape. The sun, the soul, and the moon reflect each other in Xiaopinggan's body. The sunlight and the moonlight blend together, shedding golden and silver brilliance, giving Xiaopinggan a refreshing feeling of becoming an immortal. The power of the secret techniques of the spiritual world that he has mastered, unknowingly, it has reached a new level. Quietly, Xiaopinggan has advanced from a high-level pastor to a pastor here. After a full day, the situation in Xiaopinggan's body was completely stable, and he woke up from the trance-like state and suddenly opened his eyes. Looking at the completely dilapidated cube fortress and the destroyed spiritual world passage in front of him, which seemed to have experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes, Xiaopinggan was in a daze for a while, feeling like a dream. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 748. After being shocked and confused, Xiaopinggan gradually recovered and accepted what happened. No matter what the previous process was, the final result now is that he is alive and the dream demon is dead. This is another way to the earth. The passage to the spirit world has been destroyed, and the only portal from the spirit world into the earth will be in his own hands from now on. This makes Xiaopinggan completely relieved. Because since the blood demon cult and the dominant demon god can create a dream demon, as long as there are enough boundary beads, they may be able to continuously create new dream demons, but as long as those dream demons can no longer enter the souls of the earth world, just let them do whatever they want. Anyway, I will have no worries anymore. My innate spiritual object seems to be a very remarkable thing, that thing seems to be somewhat similar to the sculpture at the door of Pengwang auction house. Are they related in any way? Xiaopinggan frowned and murmured, muttering to himself. He thought of a lot of things in his mind. He looked at the situation in his spirit body again. The harvest this time was really great. The soul power of those nightmare monsters was beyond imagination. Xiaopinggan felt that his current soul power, not only did he break through from the high-level pastoral level to a junior pastoralist, but his junior pastoralist level seemed to have reached an advanced stage in terms of soul power, and he seemed to be far away from the mid-level pastoralist. Not far away. Of course, the difference between a pastor and a pastor is not just a simple difference in soul power. To become a pastor, the most important point is that high-level pastors must use the method of reading creation. Only when you open up your own starry sky realm in the spiritual world can you truly advance to become a pastor. Xiaopinggan has not yet opened up the realm of the starry sky, so strictly speaking, he is still one step away from becoming a pastor. But the timing was not right, and he did not have time to slowly wander around the spiritual world. Now that the dream demon issue was resolved, all that was left was to return to the capital area and control the situation in Great Yangguo first. Just when Xiaopinggan was about to leave, his eyes swept across the ground again, and suddenly he saw something on the ground. Huh! Xiaopinggan walked over and picked up the thing. The thing was a bottle. It was probably less than 20 meters tall. It looked like an open vase. The blood-red bottle had strange silver patterns on it. This thing seemed to come from the dream demon. Fell from his body. Xiaopinggan took the bottle and looked at it. He just tried to inject a little soul power into the bottle. He was shocked. Damn it, there was only a dark vortex spinning in the bottle. As Xiaopinggan's soul power surged, injection, the vortex suddenly produced a huge suction force. The fog-like black magic energy in the cube fortress suddenly gathered into the mouth of the bottle from all directions, and was sucked into the bottle by the vortex in the bottle. In this way, a large area of the black demonic energy in the fortress was cleared. As the black demonic energy was inhaled, Xiaopinggan clearly felt that there seemed to be a drop of black liquid in the bottle. This was the water of the Nine Nether Demonic River. This bottle seems to be able to turn the demonic energy in the spiritual world into the water of the Nine Nether Demonic River. Xiaopinggan was shocked, and finally understood where the water of the Nine Nether Demon River from the Dream Demon came from. In addition to converting the demonic energy into the water of the Nine Nether Demon River, this bottle should also be able to convert nightmare insects and the like. Put the things in, otherwise, how did those nightmare monsters come here? Xiaopinggan had a vague feeling that this thing might be of great use, and he could study it carefully when he had time in the future. Just when he wanted to put this thing away, the bottle had turned into a black light, and it was on the middle finger of his left hand. When it was wound up, it turned into a blood-red ring with silver patterns. The surface of the ring looked like a bottle. These treasures from the spiritual world seemed to appear in different forms, it's so magical. Wow! Several pieces of gravel fell from the top of his head and fell on the ground near Xiaopinggan, breaking into pieces. Xiaopinggan looked up and saw that on the dome of the former cube fortress, many cracks had appeared unknowingly. Those cracks were still expanding, making crisp cracking sounds and gravel falling. No, this fortress is going to collapse. The cube fortress that was indestructible just now was corroded and melted by the Nine Nether Demon River formation. In just a moment, it seemed that it could not hold on and turned into a dangerous building. Xiaopinggan was shocked and rushed out of the fortress. He had just rushed out of the fortress and flew into the sky of the canyon. With a loud bang, smoke and dust billowed in the canyon, and the ground shook. The powerful fortress, which was unable to destroy even a single bit, collapsed in the blink of an eye and turned into a pile of ruins, never to be the same again. Nine Nether Demon River formation, it seems that the Dream Demon is really not bragging. The water of the Nine Nether Demon River in this formation can indeed corrode everything. Xiaoping'an said to himself in shock. Now that he thought about it, he really felt it. It was so dangerous to be trapped in the formation just now, but the dream demon almost succeeded. The next second, Xiaoping'an no longer wasted time and soared into the sky, preparing to return to the capital area with his spirit body. And as Xiaoping'an's flight speed accelerated, something unexpected happened to Xiaoping'an. Xiaoping'an felt the soul power in his body shake, and the surging soul power in his body quickly began to condense into individual pieces in his body. Mysterious tiny runes, those mysterious tiny runes were flying, condensed again, and turned into brilliant feathers. All the feathers flew and transformed, and suddenly turned into a pair of brilliant wings. The wings seemed to be somewhat similar to the pair of wings of the innate spiritual bird that I gave birth to before. Just when Xiaoping'an was surprised, the transformed wings in his body suddenly stretched out from his back and turned into a pair of brilliant wings that were almost 4 to 5 meters long. Call out. Xiaoping'an's flying speed suddenly increased by more than 3 times. In almost the blink of an eye, Xiaoping'an found that he was like a meteor, cutting through the sky at an incredible speed and flying out into the endless sky. The canyon appears above the sky. This speed is amazing. In the air, following Xiaoping'an's thoughts, the open wings suddenly closed and disappeared from behind Xiaoping'an. Xiaoping'an instantly stopped in the sky, really moving like lightning, as quiet as a virgin, moving as he pleased. Soaring, changing, chasing stars and chasing the moon is just a thought. Ha ha ha, interesting, interesting. Xiaoping'an laughed. These wings seemed to be the changes brought about by the innate spiritual being in his body. A pair of shining wings spread out again, and in the blink of an eye, the light flashed, just disappear into the sky. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 749. At night, in Dian Kingdom, in the eastern suburbs of the capital circle, in a top villa area. Outside the villa area, security is tight. Bodyguards with guns and headsets are patrolling the gardens, rooftops, and corridors of the villa area. Cameras and security sensing devices throughout the villa area are already working intensively, responsible for protecting the villa. The 2 summoner bodyguards have lit their heart lamps together in the living room of the villa. As long as there is a fluctuation in divine power or any disturbance, they will be discovered immediately. Outside the villa area, through the street lights outside, you can vaguely see the lights of red and blue police cars flashing. For the past 2 days, the entire capital area has been under complete martial law because the identities of the people living in this villa area are very different. Generally speaking, so the nearby police station specially sent more police officers to patrol here, for fear that there would be another problem here. The defense of the entire villa area, from inside to outside, is almost watertight, and not a single mosquito can fly in. In a conference room on the ground floor of the villa area, the atmosphere was equally solemn. 3 men were sitting at a round table in an underground conference room. Cigar smoke lingered in the conference room, making the 3 faces looming in the smoke and looking particularly gloomy. If any ordinary person from the Great Yan Kingdom were here and saw those 3 faces, they would definitely recognize them, because those 3 faces are also members of the top political families in the capital circle of the Great Yan Kingdom. The oldest of the 3 faces, with silver hair and thick bags under his eyes, looks to be over 90 years old. His name is Xiao. He is the former Prime Minister of the Dian Kingdom. Although he has retired for many years, he is still one of the people in the capital area. The boss and the other 2 people are Xiao's 2 sons. The eldest son is called Bo. He wears glasses, has delicate skin, and speaks slowly. He is a senior official in Qiluo province of Dian Kingdom. The younger one is called Yun. He wears Lieutenant General in uniform, is the commander of the 109th Armored Group Army of Dian Kingdom. The Di family, father and son, are all over the military and political circles. They are also characters that often appear on TV and various media in the Great Yan Kingdom. Their influence in the capital area is no less than that of the Luo family. This is the situation in the basement of Xuanhuan. When the Special Operations Force of the Order Committee and the Ministry of Political Security entered the basement, Luo Zhenxiao was already dead, and died very strangely. The result of preliminary investigation is that Luo Zhenxiao died from the devil's eye. In some kind of sacrificial ceremony, there was an altar at the scene. This was something that no one else could arrange. They also discovered a water pool where crocodiles were kept in Luo Zhenxiao's underground secret room. They based on the DNA extracted from some of the bones remaining in the water pool. According to the analysis, there were 47 children who died in the pool. What Luo Ting said before committing suicide seems to be true. It was Dibo who spoke. As Dibo spoke, he stubbed out the cigar on his hand with some irritation. The current situation is very passive for us. As soon as this happened, Li Chongyang took control of the entire capital almost instantly. Circle, the Order Committee and the garrison have all been taken over by him using the emergency law. It will be difficult for us to take action again. Di Xiao didn't say anything, but turned his gaze to Di Yun and asked, "How is the situation over there? Where are the people you contacted before?" Di Xiao's voice was not loud and seemed weak, but when heard in the ears, it gave people a feminine feeling like a poisonous snake spitting a message. After Luo Zhenxiao's incident, the Mu family was frightened and their attitudes were a little swayed. Hao Liang, Chu Tangxing, and Wu Tianchen were also in Kuashi Mountain that night. They have been detained by the Committee of Order and the Department of Political Security in the name of cooperating with the investigation. They are unable to. When I returned to the army, I couldn't get in touch. After Li Chongyang activated the emergency bill, the Joint Staff Command Center had actually been shut down and Li Chongyang had seized power. Now the entire Joint Staff Command Center has been taken over by the Special Operations Force of the Ministry of Political Security. The expression on Di Yun's face was also gloomy, and the lines at the corners of his mouth were tightly pursed. "Can the 109th Armored Group move now?" Di Xiao asked softly. Just such a question caused cold sweat to break out on the backs of the other two people in the room, and they each shivered. Facing Di Xiao's seemingly dull but actually cold gaze, Di Yun, who had just spoken, felt the hairs on his body stand up. He had to swallow a mouthful of saliva and asked nervously, "Of course I can move. Now 109 the armored group listens to me, they are all my people, it's just, Father, what do you want to do? The noose has been put around our family's neck. If we don't move, we will have no chance. This is the last chance." Di Xiao said calmly, looking at his two sons, "Although you may not believe it, but I have been living in the capital area all my life, and I believe in my intuition and judgment. People like Luo Ting will never commit suicide, let alone redonate their family's trillions of wealth to Dian, even if Luo Zhenxiao colludes with Devil's Eye. The Devil's Eye will never kill him. Everything is Li Kongyang's plan. Li Chongyang has completely merged with Wang 11 and their faction. If we don't take action, we will only be purged by Li Chongyang and the others. The fate of the Luo family now is the fate of our family. How is it possible? Father, didn't you say that Luo Zhenxiao is the strongest man in the Yan Kingdom? Even Wang Zai is no match for Luo Zhenxiao. How can Li Chongyang and Wang Zai have the ability to do such a thing silently? Logic, it's completely impossible." Di Yun looked shocked. "My judgment and intuition tell me that this is what Li Chongyang and Wang Zai did. My judgment and intuition are above logic and are never wrong. If you want to achieve great things, don't believe too much in so-called logic. We are not summoners, and we have limited knowledge of the mysteries of the world of summoners. If Li Chongyang and Wang Zai had a summoner more powerful than Luo Zhenxiao, everything would be explained. Ah, father, how is this possible? Debo was shocked. The Luo family has vomited out the trillions of black gold in their family. Nothing is impossible. In order to regain control of the Yan kingdom, Li Chongyang, Wang Zai and the others have begun to take desperate measures. Moreover, our family, I can't hide the matter from them. I asked you two brothers, one to join the army and the other to join politics, just for today. As long as the troops in your hands can be mobilized now, we will still have bargaining chips with Li Chongyang. At worst, our family can immigrate. We can still be safe when we go abroad, but it will be too late. The capital area will soon be completely controlled by Li Chongyang, and the situation in Dian Kingdom will be completely beyond our control. Xiao gasped, took a medicine bottle next to him, poured a medicine and threw it into his mouth. He closed his eyes, and the muscles on his face that had grown some age spots and sagging were trembling slightly. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes again and said to Diyun in a harsh tone, "Cough, cough, you will leave the capital area immediately tonight and take the special passage back to the station. When you arrive at the station, you will immediately order the 109th Armored Group Army to march towards the capital area. Dibbo, you and Diyun leave together. As long as the troops in your hands are not lost, in order to avoid civil war, Li Chongyang will definitely come to me to negotiate, and our family can be saved. The worst is for us. We need to cough up a little more money, but we will still have a chance in the future. Father, what should we do here in the capital area?" Diyun hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and asked. "The Luo family's affairs have completely disrupted our plans. We can no longer take care of the capital area. Even if we contact those people again, I am afraid those people will not be as active as before. Everything has changed. Now every day in 1 minute, the situation in the capital area may worsen. We can only take care of ourselves now, so you leave now, immediately." Xiao said, and patted the table heavily with his hand. Dibbo and Diyun stood up immediately, looked at each other, nodded, and were about to leave. But at this moment, the air in the underground secret room suddenly became cold. A layer of black ice appeared silently under the feet of Dibbo and Diyun, who were just about to move their legs. Hold their feet, fix them on the ground, and then go all the way up their feet, knees, thighs, waist, chest, head. In just one breath, the two people who were about to leave turned into ice sculptures. Seeing his two sons turned into ice sculptures, Xiao opened his eyes wide and wanted to scream and press a button beside him, but in the blink of an eye, his entire body was frozen and turned into ice sculptures. The Chen-Xing assassin summoned by Xiaoping'an emerged from the ground like a black smoke. He glanced at the three people in the room coldly. With a wave of his hand, the three ice sculptures shattered and turned into a devil's eye on the ground. Pattern. All this happened silently. Only before leading him away, Chen-Xing assassin raised his head and glanced at the summoner who was lighting the heart lamp, and deliberately revealed a hint of divine power. Just for a moment, the two summoners above were alerted, but before they came down, the sinking star assassin had already left and rushed to the next place. To the Chen-Xing assassin who had been gifted with Earth Escape by Xiaoping'an, the capital area tonight was like an unguarded hunting ground. Those traitors, those treasonous families, those giants and politicians who colluded with foreign enemies to bring trouble to the great Yan kingdom, tonight will face the trial of their fate. In the face of absolute strength, all power and wealth are boring jokes. At the same time, on a mountain peak outside the capital circle, Xiaoping'an stood calmly on the top of the mountain, blowing the mountain wind, looking at the list that appeared in his hand, and moved his hand slightly, and several names on the list were crossed out. This is the purge list. There are a total of 74 names on the list, all of which are in the capital area. The 109th Armored Group can be taken over as planned. Xiaoping'an pressed the call button on the Secret Service communication watch in his hand to talk to the old man, This world can actually become very simple. Wherever there are disasters and misfortunes, it means the garbage somewhere has not been cleaned up. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 750. Xiaopinggan stood on the top of the mountain, overlooking the capital circle. The sea breeze blowing from the direction of the sea blew his windbreaker. From this angle, the capital circle, which is close to the Pacific Bay Area, is particularly quiet and beautiful. The lights on those high-rise buildings are still flashing, showing the prosperity of the city, and the sea in the distance is surging under the moonlight, like variations in the night wind. In this beauty and prosperity, I don't know how many sins and lies are hidden in it. This capital circle is the center of power of the great Yan kingdom, and it is also the last refuge and fortress of all traitors and trash. The Yi city that was once destroyed by Xiaopinggan, the backstage of the Gao family, the cancerous family in the province, and the old leaders are hiding in the capital circle, like greedy parasites, silently parasitizing a person's heart, which has the thickest blood. Crazy to seize and control the wealth and power of this country. Tonight is the night to restore cleanliness to the capital area, the night to return the power of this country to the hands of patriots, and it is also the night to kill. Xiaopinggan's eyes occasionally glanced at the list in his hand. The names on the list were disappearing one by one. Whenever a name or several names disappeared, he would answer the old man's call and inform him of the progress. The God of Fortune boy locked the target, and the Shenxing assassin was responsible for cleaning up the garbage. Everything was going on in an orderly manner. In addition to the list in his hand, Xiaopinggan also has another list in his hand. On the other list, there are people who want to win over, or people who are valuable and worthy of being saved. In total, 17 people, in just these 2 days, those people have fallen into Xiaopinggan's dream puppetry and become Xiaopinggan's puppets. Including Li Chongyang, the real controller and ruler of the capital area of Dian Kingdom at this moment is actually not the big bosses, chairmen, and members of the Military Control Commission, but Xiaopinggan. The great Yan Kingdom is already in the hands of Xiaopinggan. For Xiaopinggan, who has been familiar with thousands of years of history, he discovered that the truth behind all historical tragedies is that only one national thief can survive, and the national disaster will continue. No matter when, national traitors are the real source of disaster for a country, and they are also the biggest obstacle for a country to get on the right track and allow strivers and workers to achieve dignity, happiness, and stability. The way to control a country is very simple, as long as you control the few people at the top who hold power. From the beginning to the end of the operation, it only took more than 2 hours. When the God of Fortune boy and the Shenxing assassin appeared in front of Xiaopinggan at the same time, Xiaopinggan knew that the purge had been completed. He crossed out the last few names on the list. The list then turned into ashes and dissipated in the wind. All the garbage has been cleaned up. Xiaopinggan answered the old man's call again. What I have done in the capital area has basically been completed. I understand. We are progressing as planned and have encountered no resistance. Well, I saw it. Is there anything else I need to do? Xiaopinggan said calmly. Standing on the top of the mountain, he could see the military ports in the capital area and the mobilization of soldiers and equipment in the bases of the garrison. To stabilize the situation in the next few days, the armored vehicles and troops of the garrison corps have now appeared on the streets of the capital area and important transportation arteries and information hubs, and have begun to cooperate with the summoners of the Order Committee to protect important livelihoods such as water supply and power supply in the capital area. Facilities, everything is progressing according to plan. In the quiet city, there was a slight commotion. It was the sound of armored vehicles and tank tracks rolling across the road, as well as the sound of helicopters, fighter planes, and rotor helicopter engines whizzing past in the sky. Some citizens in the capital area have discovered that tonight's situation is a bit special. At the same time, they will also receive reminders and broadcasts on their mobile phones. Members suspected of having evil eyes have invaded the capital area. The Order Committee and the garrison are already in action. All citizens in the metropolitan area are asked to lock their doors and windows and stay at home. Well, Li Chongyang is already preparing an announcement. After dawn, the capital area will soon be stabilized. This is all the means of the Devil's Eye. The situation in the capital area can be stabilized quickly. The Military Control Commission and the Order Committee will be reorganized. Here it's okay. At 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Li Chongyang will go to the headquarters of the Order Committee and open the Order Committee's secret vault for you. You can choose the boundary beads you need. The old man's calm and slightly hoarse voice came from the Special Service Communication Watch, as well as the inaudible sound of drool and saliva sliding down his throat. Only Xiaopingan could feel a trace of the old man's calm voice. The old man was shocked and uneasy from the bottom of his heart. Behind the unrest, Xiaopingan could already feel a hint of fear in his voice. Any normal person will be afraid at this time. It is the fear of the unknown, because the old man has understood that as long as Xiaopingan wants to, he can use violence to eliminate anyone and any circle in the capital circle of Dian Kingdom at any time, and control everything in this country. Xiaopingan has become a sharp sword hanging over the heads of all those in power in the capital area. Until now, the old man didn't know how Xiaopingan did all this. Out of respect for the old man, Xiaopingan did not release the yes man or use the dream puppet technique on the old man, so the old man was very awake and had a little fear of Xiaopingan. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I will go to the Order Committee headquarters. Xiaopingan responded calmly. At this time, being too polite to the old man seemed a bit hypocritical, so Xiaopingan simply went straight to the point. The situation in the capital area has finally stabilized. Need a few days. 5 days at most. Okay, then I will stay in the capital area for another 5 days. After 5 days, I will go to Muzhu province to check the situation of those magic rats and zombies. I may have a way to deal with it. Okay, I understand. The Military Control Commission and the Order Committee have made preparations in Muzhu province. The situation in Muzhu province has not deteriorated yet. I will personally accompany you to Muzhu province and provide you with everything you need. Support needed. Xiaopingan thought for a while. Let Mo Yanshao and Tupola go with me, they may be able to help. Okay, I'll arrange it. Also, please provide me with information about the headquarters of the Eye of Evil or the place where their power gathers the most. I will go find them in a few days. The old man took a deep breath and said, we have been doing this for the past few years. In the past 2 years, the activities of the Devil's Eye have become more frequent. We and the Dragon team have been tracking down the Devil's Eye's lair. Now it has with some preliminary judgments in hand, I can give you our information then. Good. Xiaopingan immediately ended the call. Looking at the sky, it was already dark. Xiaopingan rubbed his eyebrows and showed a wry smile. Xianing seemed to be with Wang Tongqing these 2 days. That Wang Tongqing was worried about Xianing. Seeing that the situation in the capital area was somewhat crisis these 2 days, he said he wanted to protect Xianing, so he stayed by Xianing's side for a whole day, almost never leaving her. Now the two of them were in Xianing's apartment. Fortunately, Wang Tongqing is not the only one besides Xianing. Fang Lingshan has also been with Xianing these 2 days, so there is no problem in terms of safety. Unknowingly, there were already 2 summoners protecting Xianing. Xiaopingan waved his hand, and the lucky boy who was doing somersaults on his shoulders laughed playfully, and disappeared suddenly, appearing in Xianing's apartment in almost a few flashes. I will see if you are qualified to be with Xianing tonight. If you are not qualified, even if you are the grandson of the old man. Xiaopingan glanced at Xianing's apartment, and his whole figure changed. Flash and disappear instantly. Just a moment later, Xiaopingan had arrived outside the apartment where Xianing lived. Through the dark glass windows of the apartment, he had a panoramic view of everything in the apartment.